Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm from PA SOC 341, and today I'm going to be talking about the classical school of thought versus the biological school of thought when approaching criminality. So right now I'm just going to tell you what the biological and classical school of thought is, so then we can say the differences and similarities on them. The classical school of thought's goal was to efficiently deter crime by transforming from an arbitrary system with severe punishments for all crimes into a fair and rational, more humanitarian system. This was because all of the crimes that were committed before would have the most severe punishments. If you theft or if you murdered someone, it would be almost the exact same punishment, and it didn't really matter what you did or how you did it. It was just you did a crime and you're going to get punished for it in the most severe and traumatic way possible that most likely ended in your death. And so we wanted to go away from this because it doesn't really deter future people from doing anything. It just kills a bunch of people that made a mistake and didn't really do the right thing. The biological school of thought's goal was to figure out why people committed crimes and determine the relationship between the body and the crime. They were more focused on crime causation instead of why you did the crime, instead of classical, which was wanting to know how to punish them instead of why you did it. This began with cadavers and examining the brain. Criminality could be measured by the bumps on one's head because crime is only in one portion of the brain. And they believed that certain skull shapes could determine criminality, if you were going to commit a crime sometime in your life or not. So going a little bit further into that, classical would be the severity of the crime should be to determine their punishment and does not impact future offenders. So this should, when they punish somebody, it should only be about that one person, and it shouldn't be about trying to deter future offenders. Instead, it should just be, this person committed this crime, how do we effectively make them have pain in order to make sure that they don't do this again, and kind of reduce recidivism instead of having repeat offenders just keep doing crimes and their punishment really never fits their crime. Their punishment should only match their crime and should not be used for deterrence of others. I don't know why I said should. It should not. Biological is an association between the body and the crime. So in the 1970s, they found an association between facial structures and behaviors. So they were more focused on the cause of the crime before it was committed and seeing if they could see why you committed that crime instead of you already committing a crime and seeing how to punish you. There's also a theory that if a male has an extra Y chromosome, he'd be more aggressive, or a brain injury or vitamin deficiencies could explain aggressive behaviors, or lead or toxins exposed to young children or other environmental factors could explain criminality or aggression in any way. So we're going to start on the similarities and the differences because I think you guys all got the point of what the classical school of thought is and what the biological school of thought is. I could go all day on the differences. I think there's a lot more differences than similarities. But some similarities that I saw were that they both have the ultimate goal of preventing repeat offenders and reducing recidivism. Recidivism is offenders being repeat offenders, so they commit a crime multiple times. Even after their first punishment, they go out and they commit another crime, they get punished, they go out and commit another crime, get punished, and it seems like their punishment doesn't really work. They also are focused on the impact of how we study criminology and how we decide to punish offenders, because if there was a biological reason of why they committed that crime, then obviously mental capacity or mental instability, that would help them be absolved from the crime that they committed. They both also want to explain and understand criminality. I think the biological school of thought is a little bit more wanting to explain and understand criminality, and the classical school of thought wants to kind of explain and understand why we should punish them and how we should punish them more than why it happened and how to not have it happen again next time. They both want to punish the offender correctly, so if there's some biological reason why they committed that crime, they're less likely to get a harder sentence. because if they're mentally unstable or unable to even know that they committed a crime, they're obviously going to get a different punishment than somebody who purposely and intended to commit that crime, because intent does matter. The differences would be that the school of thought focuses more on deterrence and punishment fitting the crime rather than causation. The classical school of thought wants to make a more efficient and humanitarian system in order to block repeat offenders from repeating and offending again. Biological school of thought is focused more on the causes to crime rather than how to deal with the offenders after the crime had taken place. So I think biological is more thinking about pre-crime and how to stop it rather than how to punish them after they already offended. They want to know why they committed that crime rather than how to punish them. Classical doesn't really consider what made someone commit that crime. They don't really think about obsessions, compulsions, or anything that made somebody do that, like the emotional response that anybody has. It focuses more on that they did it and they need to not do that again, and we need to punish them for it. Another similarity would be that both are part of the modern reasoning behind criminality, which is psychological, biological, and social. So I think this is a very big factor because I think it's a little bit more of both of them that kind of explain criminality and why we do the things we do. The differences would be biological approach wants to find the crime causation. So that's why we had so many theories on why people might commit crimes, like the skulls, the extra Y chromosome, the toxins in children. They want to know why you would commit this crime. What would cause a person to want to cause pain or harm to another person or themselves? Why would someone want to go out of their way to commit a crime when they didn't really need to? Classical wants to find the effect and fair way to punish an offender in response to their crime. So after they've already committed the crime, doesn't really matter why until, the judge and jury gets up there. It's just more you committed the crime and you need to be punished for it. It's an eye for an eye kind of thing. So this is my last slide. I have a little bit more differences and similarities. As I said, I think there's a little more differences with them than similarities. The similarities I have on this slide is they both want to control criminal behavior. So the classical school of thought wants to control criminal behavior after they've already committed the crime. So they want to control how they're going to think about the punishment, how they're going to fit that with their crime, and give them a little bit more pain than pleasure about it. The biological school of thought wants to control criminal behavior kind of before it happens and know the causation of it. So they both want to control criminal behavior just in different ways. Biological school of thought wants to more know the causation of why that happened and see if there's any mental capacity that can change why they did that and see if they can get less severe punishment. They both want to reduce the harshness. Obviously, the classical school of thought, that is very apparent that they want to reduce the harshness and make it more fair and equal. However, like I said in the differences column, the classical school of thought does have some limitations in which they think that everyone will be equal, which we kind of know now that that's not really true, especially in the present media with young black men getting killed unarmed. That doesn't happen really with any other race or any other gender. So it's mostly just with them. So with that, there are limitations to the classical school of thought, and they did want to reduce the harshness for everybody, but it's not really possible right now, which hopefully one day we will. But they both wanted to change the way people thought about criminality. So biological school of thought, they wanted to control how people thought what it caused and everything. They wanted to change the way that people thought about it and the way that people thought about criminals, because a lot of people think, oh, you murdered someone, I couldn't possibly ever do that, but you don't really know until you're in that situation. There are no limitations on the biological school of thought. With that, it's more scientifical, so anything that is proven incorrect, it kind of gets changed immediately once we know that it's incorrect, because it's more scientifical than the classical school of thought is more just trying to change a system to be more fair and equal, which we're still trying to do. The classical school of thought has three main components. The certainty of a crime, the celerity of a crime, and the severity of a crime. While the biological has branches such as biosocial reasonings and biochemical reasonings. That's pretty much all the difference and similarities I've got for you guys. Thanks so much.